Everyone, and welcome to the Homelessness and Poverty Committee on this date, May 15th. We have quorum, joined by Mr. Harris Dawson and Mr. Rue. We will start this meeting. We'll bring it to order, and what I'd like to do is take multiple item comments, and in fact, all public comments first today. Everyone will have 1 minute for general and 2 minutes for multiple, and if you just have one comment card, then you get 1 minute. And we're going to start with Armando Herman. You have 1 minute for general and 2 minutes for all of your other comments.
Homeless Strategy Bridge Home Program. I don't qualify. The majority of us don't qualify because we have a racist Holocaust institution under Marquise Harris Dawson. Turn around, motherfucker, and face the gauntlet. Listen to your constituents, Mr. Dawson. That's why you have your back against us, because you're a racist. You become as white racist as those from North Korea who plan to attack the United States and wipe out our homeless strategy. In addition to that, Mommy! On item 3, Nuri, utilizing a what? Entry system situation under Proposition HAH, you fat cunt, $619 million not to show one motherfucker like us. Where's the money? Where have you spent this money, Rue? Where have you spent this money, Mr. Dawson? Herb Wesson's on the front page of the LA Times. That's where the fucking money went. You spent it on bullshit developers to steal from the public under mixed use, what, 20% out of it going to HHH, and now we can't fucking live in a place called home. So where's the $177 million from the county to help all you people here who are homeless, to help all the Angelinos that are a fucking eyesore to this city because you created it under the gentrification of HHH, Measure H, Measure J, Measure EEE, and fuck you, Eric Garcetti, you white cunt. Now my general public comment. Why would you send the Threat Management Unit, the TRO, to suppress me of free speech? Why would you send this fucking stupid shit to the so-called LAPD to threaten me? Why are you retaliating, Pharaoh? Why are you retaliating? You sent that fucking Jew this morning in the Board of Supervisor meeting to harass me. He retaliated. He attacked me. Listen to the audio. It's all recorded. This white motherfucker Jew comes up behind me while I'm speaking like I am now, because I am the legislative body of the Brown Act, and I'm here to protest the Bain Act, the UNRWA Act, and ADA Section 202, 28 CFR. Fuck you, Eric Garcetti, and your bridge.
I think we have a number of people who are here for the first time and perhaps have never attended a committee hearing before. This outburst happens every single time, and it is an exercise of First Amendment rights, despite how it might be perceived. So I appreciate everyone's patience on having to sit through that nonsense, but it happens at every public hearing at City Hall. It's very corrosive, I think, to public participation, because who wants to subject their children to that kind of thing? I certainly wouldn't, but it's part of the deal. So let me just apologize on the speaker's behalf, because he lacks enough character to apologize to you himself. With that, we'll start with the next speaker. We have Arnold B., if there is an Arnold B., and I think perhaps there isn't. And then, is there a Ms. Brown? There's not a Ms. Brown. Also, sometimes speakers try to get really cute and they give fake names on the the form, over the electronic form. Blanca Morales. We have Blanca Morales. Please step forward, Ms. Morales. And you have commenting on item number 1.
Hi.
Have a seat, please, and Blanca will be followed by Caleb Crowder and then Chris Roth. If the three of you could please step forward.
Yes. I'm sorry, but I was in item number 4.
Oh, number 4? Okay, all right, it's 4. My mistake.
Thank you.
Step. You're on. You're on for item 4, yes. And you'll be followed by Caleb Crowder and followed by Chris Roth.
I believe that, yeah. Oh, okay.
If I call your name, it's your time to speak. Please sit and
Oh, okay. Thank you.
yeah. We're hearing all comment. Yeah.
Should I start?
Yes.
We represent the city of Reseda, and we just recently received a notice about, I'm not exactly what they're going to do, is pro-homeless. We are having this problem in the city of Reseda with homeless. But I believe that they are planning to use our parking space. It's a public parking space to build a shelter, some kind of shelter help for the homeless. The problem is that we have a little school less than 100 feet away. And I personally believe that it's going to affect the commercial side of the city. So we want to know what can we do to prevent this. There is another places where they can build a shelter, and nobody's using that. Why that specific place? Why? There is another place over Balboa and between Roscoe and Sarico.
I'll tell you what, Ms. Morales, thank you for coming in. I'll have someone from my team connect you with, I think you're in the 3rd Council District, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And so we'll connect you with that office so you can be more informed about this issue,
Yes.
okay? All right.
Thank you.
Sure. So stick around and someone from my team will
you so much.
approach you. Sure. Caleb Crowder, followed by Chris Roth.
Hello, I'm here on behalf of the Everyone In campaign, and we're here to speak in favor of Councilmember Blumenfeld's motion for the feasibility study for the Reseda parking lots. As is mentioned in the study, the intention is to actually build supportive housing on those particular lots if it do prove to be feasible, and then in addition to that, they also intend to have some parking lots. They already have some identified down the street that will replace the parking. I know there's been some issues and some concerns that have been raised, but it seems that the council member is willing to work, and we as a campaign, and also there's a broad coalition of folks that are working to ensure that the community's needs and concerns are met, but also keeping in mind that we are in the midst of a crisis. You know, there are hundreds of folks around this particular area that need help and need it as immediately as possible. So I think the committee should definitely seriously consider passing this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Roth, followed by Darren Lynn, and then Diane Taylor. Feel free to step forward and have a seat.
Good afternoon, Council. So I'm here also to support Councilman Blumenfeld's submission for a feasibility study. We are in a dire housing crisis, as you are all extremely aware. Permanent supportive housing is one of the simplest ways to make sure that people are actually able to get off of the streets and into shelter that is permanent and is protective and is stable. And that is the most important factor in terms of getting people out of homelessness and back into society where they can be safe. One of the things that people often forget about is that when you put permanent supportive housing into neighborhoods, it actually drives up property values, and it must make people safer because now people aren't sitting on the streets or in tents anymore, which inherently is going to be a safer environment for everybody who lives around this permanent supportive housing, as well as the folks who are actually getting to live inside of it. So please vote yes on this one and move it on so that it can be studied. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Lynn.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Darren Lynn with the Los Angeles City College Foundation. I wanted to stop by today to talk to you. I know that many of you know that Los Angeles City College and the Los Angeles City College Foundation are working to provide basic needs support for our students. We have a pop-up pantry twice a week that serves about 5,000 students fresh fruits and vegetables. We provide meals during midterms and finals, and we're also trying to pilot a proposed safe parking program for 200 students. What you might not know is that the potential impact that these services have, and it stands to reason that a student that can sleep and eat will do better in class, but a student that can also take a shower and do laundry and doesn't have to worry that students in their class know that they're homeless. It gives them a sense of dignity, self-worth, and empowerment, and that's actually what we're trying to accomplish here. And the impact is even greater than LACC. While we serve 19,000 students, what we do impacts the entire district, which serves 230,000 students a semester. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you again for that incredible tour last week. It was what you're doing there is amazing, and we love it.
And I thank all of you for the work that you're doing. I know this isn't easy, but thank you so much.
Thank you. We have Diane Taylor, who will be followed by a new name just popped up. I'll get to that one in a second. Followed by Dulea Sebe, followed by Enrique Velasquez.
Hi, I'm Diane Taylor. I own Trader Zone and Jewelry on the corner of Reseda Boulevard and Sherman Way, and I'm here to speak in opposition to the parking lots that they're trying to put in a housing facility for the homeless. I'm all about helping the homeless, but unfortunately we have 30 businesses that rely on that parking. These businesses have been there. I've been there since for 65 years, since 1954. Sorry, I'm nervous. And if that parking goes away, our customers have nowhere to park. I understand that they have parking lots that they're looking at that are across the street and down the way, but that's truly where they should be putting these facilities at, because the businesses don't rely on those. I'm a firearms dealer as well. I don't want people walking across Reseda Boulevard and Sherman Way with firearms. It's not a good idea. The other thing is, too, there's so many other people that will lose their businesses because there is no parking. There's nowhere to park. That is the second busiest corner in the San Fernando Valley through traffic studies that have been done in the past. I understand that there was a motion made in February. None of the businesses or the property owners were notified that this was even coming up. I personally have been to 3 parking meetings and this never came up. So.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in. Julia Sabay, Enrique Velasquez, and General Dogan.
I had the same problem like the lady just said. I am in Reseda Boulevard for over 35 years and work 7 days a week. So if the parking is closed, all the merchants in that area are going to go out of business. So I against that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Enrique Velasquez with the Everyone In campaign. I am here in support of Councilmember Blumenfield's motion to do a feasibility study on the possibility of building supported housing and or affordable housing in these parking lots. As we understand, and the study was done, and it was proved that there is ample parking lot in these parking lots, and there will be replacement parking. I understand the concerns of the merchants in the area, and to me it is great that they are engaged at these early stages of the whole process. This is just a motion to consider the possibility of this project. It's not a decision to build the project. That's what folks need to understand, and I personally myself will engage them and try to answer all the questions, but the reality is that we have a crisis. There is parking possibilities to house homeless folks living in the area, and this is what it is about. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm going to go back a little bit. There's Adam Smith, who has 2 items. Adam Smith, 1 general public comment, 1 minute for that, and then 1 minute for item number 1. Yes, sir.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is General Dogan, and I'm with LA CAN. And I just came to remind this committee what the word HEAP means. It means Homeless Emergency Aid Program, right? And the reason why I say this is because here we are in May, and we have yet to see just a toilet, a trash can, anything on the streets. This money was allocated last year. right? It don't mean put in the garage till you 5 months later figure out what to be used with it when we have a housing crisis and a public health crisis right here just a thrown throw away from here on Skid Row, right? And then there's the question about some of the things that you already have identified as questionable as under a homeless emergency, like paying for outreach, right? Unnecessary, we ain't doing that. Another thing is that paying for extended toilet hours, right, in a shelter. Why would we pay $200,000 for extended toilet hours when you got enough money right there to buy 5 toilet trucks and you can put one on each block and then you can have 24 toilets, you know, it's gonna be all day long. I'm just wondering why come the city just can't just get shit right. You know, here it is, we is in a homeless emergency and you can't even identify simple things like putting a toilet on the streets.
Okay, Adam Smith. Adam Smith, you have 2 items.
Great. My name is Adam Smith. I'm an organizer with White People for Black Lives and a proud card-carrying member of the Services Not Sweeps Coalition. First, I don't make it to this meeting too much, but this is the second time I came last week, and both times, Councilmember O'Farrell, you apologized to the group for the performative comments of Mr. Herman. My kids are in the back, they're 3 and 4, but they're more concerned with the fact that Heap money, they spend time at LA Can, they walk the streets of Skid Row, and their real concern isn't the words that are coming out of Mr. Herman's mouth. They're worried about Heap funds that they stand for homeless emergency. And like Dogon said, they've been there since October. There is an emergency on Skid Row. Those dollars need to go toward the things that they're meant to go to. And like he said, toilet trucks. You put a toilet truck on 8 corners, those can move around Skid Row all day long. No one has to worry about their shit getting taken to walk 5 or 10 blocks to find the nearest toilet. And regarding the bridge home, I just think it's important to always lift up that it seems like the city politicians love to use the bridge home as like kind of a Band-Aid to say this is what we're doing, but no one ever brings up the enforcement money for the LAPD that keeps going up and up while the bridge shelters are in various states of development. LAPD just keeps getting more money to do what they do best, which is target homeless.
Thank you. Call me old-fashioned, but I still believe in civil discourse. All right, we have Jed Perriott, followed by Joanna S., followed by Lam Gwynn. Jed Perriott, Joanna S., and Lam Gwynn. And you may all step forward and have a seat.
Good afternoon, council members. Jed Perriott with DSA, LA Can, and the Services Not Sweeps Coalition. As someone who has been on the ground monitoring the bridge enforcement zone at El Pueblo and now at Schrader on a weekly basis, I can tell you what's not feasible is the amount of public dollars that continue to be wasted. Harmful criminalization, wasted on the harmful criminalization and policing of our unhoused community members around these shelters who could not get a bed. It is incredibly frustrating, Councilmember O'Farrell, to see in your district just today 10 police officers milling about on their iPhones, 10 police officers, while power washing has happened, I believe, only once since it opened, so no power washing but 10 cops. People who desperately want a toilet in that area, just one toilet. I've been told horror stories from the folks who don't have a toilet. And I can tell you this, the service providers on Schrader and Selma agree with me that the money is being wasted on police and should be given to service providers. We need services, not sweeps in the city.
We have Joanna S., followed by Lam Gwynn, followed by Matita Patpakorn.
Hi, Joanna Swan with Democratic Socialists of America, LA Can, No Olympics, and Street Watch LA. Also the Services Not Sweeps Coalition. I'm just here to share that I've been at El Pueblo Shelter Enforcement Zone pretty much weekly for a couple months now, and most of what my work is helping disabled elderly women move all of their belongings across the street as LA San and 4 to 10 cops come through, force them to move, and then, quote, power wash which is actually just getting the sidewalk a little more muddy. They leave bags of trash on the corner. And I have a lot of photos. I can share these with you guys later if you'd like. Lots of testimonials as well. These disabled elderly women are forced to cross Cesar Chavez Avenue and Spring Street, busy intersections during work hours. For what? Is that what the Bridge Home is helping? You need to stop spending as much money on enforcement as you are on shelters and get your priorities straight. And shame on all of you who prioritize business and profit over people.
Followed by Matita Protpakorn, followed by Nikki Fung. Please step forward and have a seat. Lam Gwen?
Yeah. She's actually my aunt, so I will speak for her. And my Delia Sebe is my mom. Hello,
Okay,
David.
That's fine. What's your name?
Nikki Fong.
Nikki
I'm the
Fung.
next speaker.
Okay.
So, I think we can all surmise that we're all concerned about homelessness in the city. I'm very familiar with the Bridge Housing Program because Councilmember Rue is my councilman, and it was going to be open really close to my son's school. We got involved and tried to figure this out. So the concern here is not that these business owners don't want to help the homeless. The concern is what that impact is going to have on their livelihood. So if this parking lot that's located behind the 7200 block of Reseda is actually converted into bridge housing, I don't know what the plans are for alternative parking. There are businesses where you need easy access to the parking lot. And the concern is if you shut this parking lot down in order to build this shelter, which then is very close to a school, what is that impact going to have? Do we want to put all of these people who rely on these businesses for their livelihood out of business? What happens to them then? So I understand the concern with homelessness. It's rampant in Sherman Oaks where I live. That doesn't mean, though, that we put people out of business. So I want the committee to consider all of that when they're making a decision.
Thank you.
Can I submit, will the committee take a letter?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
So you're Ms. Protpakorn, correct?
Yes.
Right here? Okay. So you're good. All right. So you're good. We have Pedro Manrique, followed by Peter. Just Peter. And then followed by Fatri Costa.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity, for your attention. Good to see you, Councilmember Rue. I had volunteered a few years back with the Sherman Oaks Chamber of Commerce, and I had seen the good quality leadership and the transparency that Councilmember Rue had afforded the community. I seek and I reach out to your level of compassion as people, as human beings first, to find a happy medium that supports the needs of the homeless. And in fact, it could be actually economically more feasible to find housing for homeless. It actually costs the city less money to actually house them as it does to physically have them on the street. But at the same time, support the needs of the community and the businesses in the local area. I really do feel confidently that there is a happy medium that could be established. Options include setting this up possibly on the Darby location as opposed to the Baird location. So please try our best to work with the community, look deep into ourselves, find a solution that meets a compassionate need. I would go beyond calling this a homeless crisis. I would call this a humanity crisis, because it really isn't going away. So we really have to address it to that level, but to work with the people in the community, please. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. All right. So Nikki Fong has spoken, and that was Mr. Manrique. And now we have Peter and then Fatri Costa.
Good afternoon, Council. My name is Peter Fung. I work at Icon Optometry, which is on Reseda Boulevard and Sherman Way. I'm a part of 30 community stakeholders. That little plaza has been the lifeblood of the Vietnamese community for over 30, 40 years now. I just worry that, destroying that parking lot would essentially cripple the businesses in the area. We're not opposed to helping the homeless, but we do believe there are other options and other parking lots that are underutilized. That can be another option. For example, 7130 Darby Avenue, there's a parking lot there that is underutilized. I've been working here for 8 years now, and over 95% of those businesses are minority owned. 100% of those are all family owned, so I just think it's crucial.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you. We have Fatri Costa, followed by Simon Leung, followed by Suzanne Mabel.
Yeah. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. You're on.
I own the business.
Put the microphone closer, please.
for 17 years, and I learned that you're going to destroy the parking lot. And I'm really, how to explain to you, I'm against it because that is, I have employee, about 30 people who working with us. And if you destroy that, if you don't build up something in our parking lot, mean that I cannot do business, then I don't have money to pay my employee. Eventually, I might have to close my business. So this is, I again it, that's it, I want to say that. I would hope you to understand it.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Simon Leung, followed by Suzanne Mabel, followed by Tai Tran. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon. I am Simon Leung. I'm president of Vietnamese Association of San Fernando Valley. We just heard last night, somebody told me, and the city will destroy, the parking lot that everybody says. And that will be hurt, thousands of the kids and the business too. The kids usually use the parking lot for every year for Moon Festival. 1,000 kids come over. They enjoy it. So we use that one, and it's very helpful for our community and the whole Reseda and San Fernando Valley. That's why I come over here to again, that proposal. We try to have for the homeless too, but if we can have somewhere else, we can do it. We usually, the Vietnamese Association help the homeless every month. We bring the food to downtown to do that too. But this one, I think, is we should reconsider. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Suzanne Mabel, followed by Tai Tran, followed by Thoi Din. Yes, ma'am.
I'm Suzanne Mabel, and I'm really here just to support some of my friends. But from what I'm hearing, both sides of the argument have something to say. We do want to help the homeless. But when it comes to taking away people's businesses and making old people walk across the street to go to a business, that is a big issue too.
Thank you. Tai Tran?
Yeah, my name is Tai Tran, the foreman, and can I talk? Okay.
My name is Tina Lee. I should be on the list there.
Yes.
But they just came in to sign, but can I speak on their behalf?
Well,
We're
you're
all
on the list, so you can speak on your own behalf. You can start the clock again, so she gets a full minute. You can't.
Translate.
Yeah.
Translate for them.
I got this. So, yeah, well, you can't speak for anyone else, but as Mr. Roos said, if he needs a translator, then you can translate for him if he would also like to speak. So, would you like to speak yourself, ma'am? Or are you here specifically to translate?
I would like to speak for myself.
Okay, you do that, and then if he would like to speak, then you can also translate for him. Okay. That way you each get 1 minute.
But if he doesn't want to, is that okay?
That's fine.
'Cause
yeah.
we just wanted to support. So I'm not here for the legality behind all this. All I know is that spot, that area right there where the parking lot is, we all need it. My aunt owns Bang Luck, and it's our little Vietnamese community. That's where we meet for everything. I have no solution for you guys at this moment, but I just hope you guys don't do this because we have that's where we meet for all our festivals, for everything. This is all we have. And like Simon Leung just said earlier, every month we go, all the businesses put money together and we go and feed everybody in downtown. So without our businesses, we would not have the money to even go help do any donation, any charities. So I just hope you guys reconsider it, and it's a lot of our livelihoods. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thoi Din?
Yeah.
Yes?
We're just here for the support.
Okay, you're just here to support. All right. If you would like to speak, you certainly can. You filled out a card. You don't have to.
Do you want to talk a little bit? Okay, they have.
All right. Thank you. All right. We have Truoc Q. Truoc Q. That's our last speaker who filled out a card is Truoc Q. No? And then we have Wayne Spindler. 1 minute for general and 2 minutes for all other comments.
That's right. So we coming down here, and I got a text from Marquise Harris, Dildo Dawson, Weezer Harris to get here and try to save what's left of Canoga Park. Canoga Park has no more parking. David Rue knows this because he's right next door. Help us stop Bob Blumenfield, who's had a stroke. He's had a stroke. He's insane. Please, please keep our parking lot. Do not put this piece of shit over there in Camden bed. We need it for the businesses. I'm so grateful to Marquise Harris, Dawson Dildo Harris for letting me know about this meeting. I was on the freeway, but I came back to save Canoga Park, save the 3rd District. I'll do it for you. Fuck number 4. Vote no on number 4. That's right, because number 4 is an evil number today. And you sit here, and I know David Rue and I know Monica are saying it ain't my motherfucking problem, but it is your problem because it's my problem. And I was to go to Canoga Park. I haven't been in Canoga Park for 3 whole years. You know why? Because Canoga Park looks like downtown fucking Kabul, Afghanistan. It's a fucking shithole. It's worse than anything you've seen in South Central. It's worse than anything in TJ. Canoga Park used to be so beautiful when I was growing up. I had nothing but pretty trees and free parking and libraries open. Now it's a dumping ground for every crack dealer and every person who smokes dope and everybody that commits felonies and ID theft. That's what Canoga Park is. So you're putting the final nail in the coffin. Do not do it. Try to save Canoga Park, please. Join Marquise Harris, Dawson Dildo Harris, Weezer, save it because he knows that it's going to turn into a total shithole. And then, of course, number 666, CD6, Mary Martinez, get out of HHH. Get him out of here. So the answer is that what we need is a couple of helicopters, and we need some napalm, and we need to start conducting carpet bombing military operations to get all these fuckers off the streets of those goddamn tents, and let's clean our city up, and let's build it all up again anew. That's right, Monica, you know, you public works expert knows you gotta stop this shit. Bob Blumenfield, place him under arrest and send him to Guantanamo Bay with Mayor Eric Garcetti, the dildo.
Let's take item 3 on consent without objection. We'll take item 3 on consent. And then on item 4, if Meg Barkley could step forward in the CLA's office to explain what item 4, what we're deciding on. It's really an evaluation. It's an evaluation that we're approving, not a project. So if Ms. Barkley could explain.
Mr. Chair, this is Jack Reef, CLA's office. Would you like me to read
Please.
number 3 and
Please
4
do.
into the record? Okay.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Item number 3, motion Martinez O'Farrell relative to LA Family Housing. It Takes a Village proposal, review of the 2016 Comprehensive Homeless Strategy and utilization of the court and entry system for situations of family homelessness and identification of clients for permanent housing, including traditional affordable housing not funded by Proposition HHH. And item number 4, motion Blumenfield Rodriguez relative to evaluating the property at 7246 and 7222 Baird Avenue to determine if the property is suitable for development as affordable and or supportive housing facility, and evaluating the properties at 7120 Baird Avenue, 7131 Canby Avenue, and 7130 Darby Avenue to determine the feasibility for replacement parking in conformance with the procedure set forth in the city's asset evaluation framework.
Thank you, Mr. Reef. We have Meg Barkley from the CAO's office to explain this a little better.
Thank you. Meg Barkley, City Homeless Coordinator in the CAO's office. So this is a standard motion that all of you have introduced at one point in time or another to evaluate property that's owned by the city for feasibility to be used for affordable or supportive housing. It's the very first step in this process, and once if the property is determined to be feasible, there would be another process, another council review of a recommendation to start the process of entering into a agreement with a potential developer to work with the community on the design of an ultimate project before a project would ever come in, even for funding to begin the process of construction. And on parking lots like this, typically part of that feasibility analysis is the need for and ways to identify replacement parking for any parking spots, any parking spaces that may be eliminated as the result of an ultimate development, which is not necessarily a foregone conclusion that parking would be, that a development would happen and or that parking would be lost as a result of that.
Thank you, Ms. Barkley. Any other elements that will come to light during this evaluation process in terms of something that was mentioned was just safe pedestrian circulation? Is that a factor that is looked at?
Yeah, that is a part of any project design, as well as as a developer that may be identified to potentially build something on this site would be looking at those types of things, and those are the kinds of things that are considered as a part of any ultimate and a project that may ultimately be designed and placed on any of these sites.
Thank you. Thank you. I just want to say this, that to everyone who came in and gave public testimony, it's definitely in the city's best interests to explore city-owned property for the production of permanent supportive housing projects for the obvious reasons. If the city owns the land, then there is a tendency to evaluate that land to help house individuals. So it's the first step. It's an evaluation only, and what I would strongly encourage all of you to do is get more involved with our colleague, Mr. Blumenfield's office, to let your concerns be known. You're in the building. You could go there right now and just, all right, you're already on it. But dialoguing with the council office is really extremely helpful. Would anyone, Ms. Rodriguez, if you'd like to.
And I just to add to that, just to again, this is the first part of the conversation to evaluate the location for its feasibility. Through this process and many other examples, we've actually identified other preferred sites, I know in CD10 and other locations. So again, I want to, just to reiterate what my colleague just shared with you all, I think it's really important have that conversation and that dialogue. If there are alternative sites that are feasible, these are all opportunities for discussion right now, and this is the start of the conversation to help address a very critical need that we're all facing. And the reality is that there's far greater impacts to not doing this work. So it's really important that we are all facilitating an outcome that actually generates the housing that we need right now. So we appreciate you all coming out and being part of the conversation. But just again, I think just to reiterate, this is the first step in evaluating the areas of opportunity where we can start to construct in this process. And we appreciate your participation.
Mr. Roop.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Nikki, for reaching out to my office yesterday. I did have a very quick conversation with Councilman Bob Blumenfield, and he is very aware, and he is aware of the parking situation, like everywhere else in the city of Los Angeles, where parking is very scarce, and he will thoughtfully consider the situation there, and like my colleagues have stated, and like the CAO has stated, and just like what happened in Sherman Oaks. This is just a feasibility study. This is not even step one, it's pre-step one. So he's even trying to see if this is even possible. Because just because a site is identified, many sites, and I think there's a report even on this agenda where they were unfeasible for whatever reason and that had to be taken off the list. But with that said, I really want to commend and thank Councilmember Bob Blumenfield for even exploring, especially in the West Valley. Because this is what I said in Sherman Oaks. We're not only doing it in Sherman Oaks or in Hollywood or in Venice Beach or Skid Row. We're doing it everywhere in the city of LA because this is a city of LA problem. And I know every community, whenever we even look into something like this, they feel like they're unfairly being targeted, which is not the case. And I really like, for example, Councilmember O'Farrell has the second one that's open, and you know, I'm looking at another one in Los Feliz right now, and it's in the feasibility stage as well. So this is what we're doing all throughout the city of Los Angeles, because the homeless problem is a city of LA problem. And I really commend Councilmember Blumenfield for stepping up and identifying sites. And he's open to additional sites as well.
Thank you, sir. And I should have differentiated this a little bit earlier. This motion actually does specific. Some motions are broader, but this motion is specific to affordable housing and supportive housing. We do have a report later on the agenda related to motions specifically for the bridge home process, the interim housing or shelters. But this is not. This is actually a narrower focus. But yes, but it's a very similar process.
Thank you for that clarification.
Perfect, thank you. All right, so I'm going to recommend that we approve the motion to explore and evaluate and do the assessment. And I have no doubt that the community will be very involved every step of the way, as is your right and as is your obligation. And I want to thank everyone for coming in and speaking to this matter. I hope that helped clarify it a little bit. We're not approving a project today. So thank you so much. Without objection, that'll be the order. Thank you. All right, Mr. Reef, we'll now go to item number one. And before you read it, all comment has been satisfied, and so public comment cards are done. Mr. Reef.
Yep. Item number one, Homeless Strategy Committee report relative to the State Homeless Emergency Aid Program, first quarterly expenditure report and funding recommendations. This item is also referred to Budget and Finance Committee.
Thank you. All right.
Hello, my name is Susie Rios-Bellinat. I work in the CAO's office alongside Meg Barclay, the City Homeless Coordinator, and together we will be presenting the fourth report on the city's state HEAP grant and the first report to provide the status of the HEAP expenditures to date. This report, in addition to providing the status of HEAP commitments and expenditures, provides recommendations for the Skid Row HEAP motion introduced by Council District 14 on April 12th, and identifies and provides recommendations to fund construction and services gaps for and to implement a bridge home projects. So I will present the status of the HEAP expenditures. As of March 31st, so this report was heard by the Homeless Strategy Committee back in April, so these numbers have been updated since. As of March 31st, a total of $2,288,705, or 2.7% of the city's HEAP allocation had been expended. That number I can update for you now. I know that we're very interested in seeing these dollars go out the door. As of April 30th, that has increased by $1.26 million, and for a total of $3,553,460 expended. That represents 4% of the total HEAP allocation. This report also discusses the status of HEAP commitments. Now, this was effective as of April 3rd. We had committed 57% of the total grant. $20 million of the total grant award is reserved for bridge home projects, and $16.5 million as of 4/3 remained uncommitted. If all of the recommendations in this report are approved, that will increase. This report also provides recommendations for the Skid Row HEAP motion introduced by Council District 14, as I said. That would add an additional almost $7 million for restrooms, the relocation of the voluntary storage unit or storage facility, the bin, adding Sharps boxes, and adding outreach homeless engagement teams to the neighborhood. And then lastly, this report identifies and provides recommendations relating to a bridge home projects, and I will hand the mic over to Meg to discuss those items.
So the new funding recommendations that are included in this report are, as Susie mentioned, additional construction and service funding needed associated with the bridge home projects that have existing approved funding motions. So there's a number of projects that since the motions were improved, some design changes as a result of conversations with operators, lessons learned from the Schrader site, and also our very, very tight construction market have resulted in increased bids on the cost to actually construct these sites. And so there's additional construction funding needed for a number of the properties, and also additional service funding, which I'll talk about in a minute. So it recommends $13.2 million from Heap Category 1, and that includes a transfer of $3.5 million that was reserved by City Council in January for bridge home projects from Heap Category 3 to Heap Category 1. And $2.7 million is recommended from Heap Category 2 for those projects in the Council District 14 motion relative to Skid Row, hygiene, and other construction services, and $2 million from Heap Category 4 for operating costs for youth beds planned for the site on Sunset in Venice in Council District 13. The 4.4 that's a total of $17.8 million that's recommended in this report. The 4.4 that's recommended for capital is recommended to address those increased costs at 4 bridge home sites. And also we recommend $8.8 million for services for costs at the bridge home sites that are listed in table 3 on page 6 of the report. The service funding is needed to supplement Measure H funds that have been committed by the county for at least 600 beds. They have agreed to fund $50 per bed per night, which is the standard the standard bridge housing bed rate, because we are anticipating enhanced services at the bridge home sites. We've been recommended by LASA that we need an additional $10 per bed per night, or $60 total bed rate. So the good news is that we have about 789 beds that have either been completed or are in construction. And so we're 189 beds shy of the current county commitment. In order to make sure that we have funding so that LASA can execute service contracts and the opening of these sites is not delayed, we're recommending the Heap funding for services at these sites, but this only underlines the need to continue to work with the county to identify and to try and enhance that partnership for ongoing service funding for a bridge home sites. So as Susie mentioned, the report also recommends $2.7 million for outreach and hygiene services on Skid Row. In addition to new toilets and showers that were approved by Council for Skid Row in January. So we have been on an ongoing campaign to enhance hygiene services across the city, but in Skid Row in particular. Also, I've circulated some amended recommendation language. Since the report was considered by the Homeless Strategy Committee in April, the operator for the site in CD 11 has changed from the people concerned to PATH. And so recommendation 3, there's some changed language in there to shift funding that was additionally anticipated to go to the people concerned to operate that site to people assisting the homeless. So there's a new recommendation 3F, and the total amount for the people concerned in recommendation 3B has been adjusted down to reflect that. Additionally, we have recommend adjusting recommendation 3 about the controller instructions, and that just has to do with this was also referred to Budget and Finance, which will not hear the report until early June, and we cannot get the funds encumbered before June 30th with that additional time. And so we're recommending adjusting the controller instructions language to place the controller instructions on the agenda shortly after the beginning of the fiscal year, so that those funds don't get approved and then reverted immediately as soon as the fiscal year starts. So it's a technical thing, but it will save everybody, and it will allow the funds to be available at the beginning of the fiscal year rather than having to go through a reappropriation process.
That sounds good. You're talking about the bridge home programs. You talked about hygiene services and outreach. Are you also addressing outreach for families housed in motels, for example, or diversion?
Those are not services that are recommended in this report. However, there were funds recommended in the January report for the first big round of Heap allocations for diversion services that the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority will implement by placing diversion specialists at city family source centers and then also LASA has allocated a large portion of their direct Heap allocation for prevention and diversion services countywide, including a flexible pool of funding to try and resolve people's homelessness quickly if they are at imminent risk of homelessness or, in fact, very newly homeless. And that it's my understanding those funds are in the process of making their way through the procurement process. But
do you have a sense of how the newly sheltered individuals who have addiction issues, how that's being dealt with?
I don't have any specific evidence, but anecdotally, my understanding is that if people have service needs that are more specific or beyond the ability and the capacity of the service providers to meet, that actually just being in the facility gives them a better opportunity to be able to find them a bed in a more specialized facility like substance abuse treatment, mental health, things like that, and they will refer people to a more appropriate placement.
Okay. Are there any updates in relation to the refresh spot?
Oh, yes, it's
downtown?
yes. So we are reviewing, and actually that site, the site that was identified or that has been identified, the one on 6th Street.
Yeah.
And also we're working with the mayor's office, the Skid Row coordinator, and also Council District 14 to review sites to find the most appropriate site and then to identify. So actually the Bureau of Engineering is doing some feasibility analysis on sites, and we will be coming back with recommendations for the actual costs to move the refresh spot to a permanent location soon.
Martin's here, but don't they have to move by October or something? If I have that right?
Oh, Kirkpatrick. That's not Martin.
I know.
Not Martin. Sorry about that. I don't have the hat. Kirkpatrick Tyler, Director for Skid Row Strategy, Mayor's Office. So we've been in regular communication with Weingart, which is the owner of the property that the refresh spot is currently hosted on. They have intentions of beginning some of their site preparation in October, but their communication to us is just that they want to know the timeline that we're working on. As Meg pointed out, the BOE has actually completed their field work on yesterday for site feasibility for the 540 town site, and we should have the report back from them on the 21st of this month, which is next week. And so we're looking forward that if everything goes well, that we will have identified a relocation space. We've already started doing communication with community members as well as the service provider on that site, and pending favorable outcome for the 540 town site, we'll move forward for that space to be the permanent home for the refresh spot.
So far, so good then.
Yes,
with
sir.
No gaps that are imminent in terms of when they have to move and when a new spot will be prepared?
No, so that's actually one of the reasons that we started the process early, is to make sure that there was continuity in space. In the projections, if there's maybe about a 1 or 2 day interruption, what we've arranged for is for there to be mobile showers on site that would be available to folks in the interim for that move. But the goal is to be able to do site prep so that it's a seamless relocation.
Terrific. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Did that do Martin? Yes. Yeah, all right. All right. You got Martin's approval. All right.
That's Martin.
In relation to the report, any gaps in funding that you've identified?
Related to
the overall?
As of now, the sites that had funding motions, this fills those funding gaps. We are looking ahead to other sites that are in later stages of feasibility analysis to make sure that we have updated designs and that we are making recommendations based on service provider feedback. That's one thing that we learned from Schrader, one thing that we've learned from other sites. So, for example, the site on Hope Street, the motion that was approved the last time we met, that site, we actually did get provider feedback before we finalized the budget, and so that is based on a design that has had the feedback from the provider. We don't anticipate any significant changes, and so we feel more confident that that budget is what it is, and that's how we'll be moving forward going ahead.
Okay. And then lastly, do you feel that HSID is sufficiently staffed to take on the monitoring and managing work?
It's my understanding that they are getting some additional, or that there's potential to get some additional staff recommended. I think HSID is doing a great job monitoring what it is that they have to monitor, but there's always going to be more contracts, and so I'm sure they could use the help.
All right. Great. Colleagues, any questions? Mr. Rue?
Just a quick question. You briefly mentioned that there's a higher cost in construction. Is it, I know there's lots of construction going on throughout the city, but I thought there was a little bit of a dip going down. So is that not the case? Is construction just very competitive? And is some of the trade issues affecting any of this? I hope not.
I don't think it's the trade issues so much as it is that there's still so much work going on in the city that, believe it or not, I think some of these jobs are too small and contractors have their pick. And so we just had a meeting about this today. GSD is reporting that they put work out to bid and they'll get one bid back. Yeah. Where in the past, so it's hard, it's not very competitive for our work. And so we're not able to really, review multiple bids and try and figure out what's the real cost, or is this a reasonable cost? And the companies just have so much work right now that the bids are actually between what they might have been for previous projects. Now that they're bidding out the projects that are going under construction now, they really are finding those bids coming back. Even if we base it on past estimates and past costs, the bids are coming back higher than what they were before. And so the estimating game is also just getting more difficult, because even if we use past real costs, they're not necessarily a reliable measure of what we're going to get back when we bid the work out.
It's a fortunate but unfortunate circumstance.
It is.
I know a lot of the labor unions, especially the construction trades, are recruiting and training aggressively. So hopefully it'll catch up. Well, thank you for that.
I will say that GSD and the Bureau of Engineering are doing a great job working together and being really creative about trying to find ways to bring costs down, bring the timing, to make the timing as predictable as possible. And we've never, it's very interesting. Building residential facilities is not something the city has ever done before, and they've very much risen to the challenge. So, but yes, it is. It's definitely come back a lot more expensive than we had anticipated, which is unfortunate.
Mr. Harris-Dawson.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Roof, for your questioning about the construction. It's something we've been concerned about for a good amount of time. I would just note there's still a bit of a contradiction there. We still have incredibly high unemployment in South LA. So we aren't quite figuring out how to get the latent workforce, to work on these projects. But one thing I would just offer, and would love some thoughtfulness on it in the future, not today, but at a certain point, the whole premise of the government contracting out work to the private sector is that the private sector can do it cheaper and faster. Well, I'm still waiting for a bid on a navigation center. I'm waiting on someone in the private sector to respond to it at all, much less respond at a decent price.
Yep.
We're waiting. I mean, as you know, we don't.
Very familiar.
It's as if the private sector doesn't exist.
Yes.
So I just think, I just always want to poke at this idea that we just accept as a given that the private sector is going to be better. Yes. We should take a hard look at, maybe the government, maybe we do this ourselves. Because, it's hard to imagine that it will cost the government more than what we're paying, and we'd have more control of it. We'd be able to bring on workers. This is a lot we could do. I just
want
to remind us that the world wasn't built by the private sector. We came to that pass for a particular reason that made sense, and when it doesn't make sense anymore,
exactly,
maybe we don't do it anymore.
I should clarify that GSD is doing a lot of the work directly on, and GSD hiring hall and construction forces are doing a lot of the work directly on the bridge home sites, the installation of the trailers, for example. There is some work that's very specialized related to, installing the tension membrane structures and things like that that require them to bid out. But we are trying to find that balance of making, because the nice thing about, as we were reminded today, about city forces implementing or doing the construction on these sites is that we can be much more flexible and responsive to changes in the needs for the site, even during construction. So it's definitely a balance that we're trying hard to find. I definitely agree with you.
Thank you so much. All right, seeing as there are no further comments or questions, what I recommend is that we approve the report along with the amendments from the CAO as it relates to recommendation 3F.
Thank
Right?
you. And
Yep.
4.
Oh, and 4?
3A, 3B, 3F, and recommendation 4.
Okay, so generally approve the report as amended by CAO.
Thank you very much.
We'll keep it at that.
And we've provided the amended language to the clerk, so it
Great.
should be.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
With
Thank
no
you.
objections, that shall be the order. We'll now go to item 2, Mr. Reef.
Item number 2, Homeless Strategy Committee report relative to the feasibility motions for the Abridged Home Program, which summarizes the status of the feasibility motions for potential Abridged Home Program sites.
And Meg Barkley isn't going anywhere.
I just camp out here.
Welcome.
Hi. Good afternoon, council members. My name is Helene Bertolo. I am a member of Meg Barkley's team at the CAO's office, and I will be reporting on the report back on feasibility motions for the Abridged Home Program. The report summarizes the status of feasibility motions for a potential Abridged Home Program. There was 25 motions introduced to determine the feasibility for these sites. 4 sites are completed and are soon to be operating or are operating as a bridge home. 4 are under construction. 7 have received funding. Well, at the time of writing this report, 7 have received funding approval. 1 additional has this past week at Hope Street in CD9. And 10 are still undergoing feasibility review. There are 15 sites that were deemed to be infeasible. The Homeless Strategy Committee recommended that the council instruct the city clerk to receive and file 8 of the council files because of all the sites named were deemed to be infeasible for the projects, and instruct the city administrative officer to report back on the remaining sites when feasibility reviews have been completed. And there were 2 motions in their council files 18-0357 and 18-0392, where some sites were deemed to be infeasible, but some sites are still undergoing feasibility review, so that's why they're left out of the receive and file.
Okay. All right. Good. Meg gets a break.
I'm just here for backup.
Have operating funds been identified for all of 2019 and 2020?
So of the...
You haven't looked that far necessarily, but...
Sorry, what was that?
Have all the funds been identified? I said, I know you haven't looked that far ahead necessarily, but in terms of anticipation.
I think as Meg mentioned in the previous report, those that have had funding motions, so the 8 that have had funding motions, those funding were secured either through GCP, UB, or Heap. The remaining sites that are undergoing feasibility, those are where we anticipate to potentially have funding gaps.
And that is where, as I was saying before, we felt the need to recommend the funding for the services for the projects that had approved funding motions so that we could be sure that those services were going to be ready to start in time. But that's where we're really hopeful that we can continue to work with the county to partner, as we have on past sites, to make sure that to get support for additional beds beyond the initial 600 bed commitment. So we're definitely hopeful, and especially with the potential additional funding to come from the state, as was announced when the governor announced the budget revised last week. We're hopeful that we could work with the county. The county will be getting their direct allocation as well, and start that conversation.
And they just did a huge allocation. Was it just for H disbursement, or I think
There was a request for proposals. Is that what you're talking about? That was released
a couple of days ago. They approved like $500 million. Yeah.
Oh, the Measure H. Yes, that's the year. Sorry, excuse me.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's the
all
year 3 Measure H funding recommendations that were approved by the Board of Supervisors yesterday.
So things are looking good.
Yes.
Generally speaking, are the sites, is it still roughly a 3-year time frame for all the sites?
Most of the sites are are leasing for a 3-year term with options to, for 1 or 2 years to continue operations. But not all sites include that option.
I should know this, and maybe it's in the report, but how many of those sites are on city-owned property?
That's a good quiz.
That is a good, that is a good
Most of
question.
them, I think, but I'm not 100% sure.
Not all. There are, today, the Caltrans Commission was considering a site in, which CD, for the Caltrans?
Council District 15.
Yeah, for CD15 at Beacon Street. We are contracting, or we have a lease, a master lease with HACLA for some sites. So there's a lot of intergovernmental cooperation going on. We've had a few with private operators or private landlords at Paloma and at West 3rd Street, but the rest are either city-owned or with other governments.
Okay.
So far, in the ones that are listed in the report, 4 of them are on city-owned sites. So that's Schrader, St. Andrews Place in Council District 8, and the sites on Western and Lafayette in Council District 10. And we have, as Helene mentioned, Imperial Highway in Council District 15 is actually owned by HACLA. And we're partnering with the county on Hope Street in Council District 9. And then there is the site on Sunset in Venice that's owned by Metro.
Okay. Thank you. Colleagues, questions or thoughts about this? No? All right, well, thank you. So what we'll do is we'll approve the report and we'll receive and file the motions where the sites are deemed infeasible for the program.
Great. Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you. No objections. That shall be the order. Now we'll go to item 5.
Item number 5, Housing and Community Investment Department Report relative to reprogramming Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority fiscal year 2018-19 City General Fund savings to support vehicle fleet purchases and winter shelter program.
And we have Mr. Matt Sharp to report. Sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Matthew Sharp, Los Angeles Housing Community Investment Department, here to answer any questions you might have and/or to bring other speakers to address any questions you have regarding a transmittal our general manager released to the mayor that was released to council last week. In summary, the request is for your authorization for us to reprogram, adjust within the current City General Fund contract with LASA in 2 program categories in order to expend regarding specific programmatic activities that LASA has made a request to us to reprogram.
Thanks, Matt. And we have folks from LASA, if you want to step up and add to the conversation.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hello. So do you have anything to add, or should we just start asking questions? Or
I think Matt did a great job giving an overview, so we'll take your
too.
questions.
Succinct. He was concise, short, and to the point, which we all strive to be.
Yes, yes.
All right. And so some questions that I have, were all of the priorities and needs reviewed, all of them on the list?
Yes, they were.
Okay. And how were the vehicles chosen, prioritized? Was it passenger capacity?
The type of vehicle?
Yeah.
Yes. So we went through a process with the county last year of purchasing vehicles, and based on, we were looking at maximizing the number of vehicles we could purchase for the amount that was approved, while also looking at fuel efficiency, environmental impact, as well as cargo capacity. We use these vehicles often to transport clients and their belongings to shelter and to other service providers. Based on that purchase and the feedback that we've gotten from staff, we've settled on a particular vehicle that provides all of those functions.
And your position is that there are savings involved on this. How do you justify that there are savings in relation to the homeless engagement team?
So what we did was an analysis looking at the positions that were budgeted as an FTE and the time when they start. And that helped us identify that given that some of the positions came on board at a later point in the year, that the money that was set aside for that position for the full fiscal year or a portion thereof
was available. So as staff come on board, we allocate their costs to the end of the year, and then if there's budget savings or savings from that position, that's the cost that we identified as being available to be able to use for a one-time use.
And there was an authorization last year, right? And so how many vehicles are added to the fleet at this point?
Right.
with
So
plan?
this request is looking to purchase an additional 12 vehicles. So what we're looking to do is instead of leasing or renting vehicles that we've been doing with Enterprise, we did an assessment and saw that the vehicles are being leased at a cost of $10,800 per year. And so when you think about that, you know, the one-time costs or budget savings that we have, we can use that, purchase the vehicles, and then have that useful life of about 5 years, and then have a cost of maintaining those vehicles, which are about $180, or it was 800? I think $800 is what we're estimating, versus the $10,800. So then that makes that funding available in future years to invest in other activities that could help, you know, better serve the clients that we're serving.
Savings in the long run.
Exactly.
And so what's the maintenance plan? Is the maintenance plan through the purchase, or is the city services?
So that's worked into to the cost analysis. We actually have contracts with 2 providers currently for fleet maintenance, and yeah, so
Okay.
that would be
So
working.
you have those contracts already in place?
Correct.
We do.
For other, for the fleet. Okay. And are there upgrades to the fire safety systems?
Paul Duncan with LASA. So there, as part of our winter shelter program with Directive 45, through the city, in order to operate above 49 people within a building, it does require that there is a fire sprinkler system. This limited our ability to fully utilize several of our sites within the city. So this funding would assist in installing fire safety systems, specifically the sprinkler system. And we have already received bids, so this is an informed amount that in order to upgrade those facilities and add fire sprinklers.
All right. And lastly, can you talk about fuel efficiencies in terms of the vehicles that you're about to purchase?
So in looking at the overall cost over the life of the vehicle, we've settled on Ford Escape as the vehicle. It's a small power plant, so fuel efficiency is fairly high. I believe, I don't have the specifics in front of me, but versus the cost of a hybrid, we also don't have the capacity for electric at most of our locations to charge vehicles. So we did look at those possibilities. The cost over the estimated life of the vehicle was less with the gas power plant as opposed to the hybrid.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Okay. Hopefully in 5 years,
I would love to have it all electric.
You know,
if
supercharged, 500 miles of charge. It can be done within 5 minutes. All right. Thank you. Colleagues, any questions about this? Mr. Sharp, did you need to add
Yeah,
anything
just
else?
for the record, I want to make sure we introduce
Yeah.
our
yes.
fellow panelists. We have
Yes,
Christina M.
recognize.
Dixon, Director of Finance from LASA, Nathaniel Vergao, Director of Access Engagement, Paul Duncan,
back.
Director of Procurement and Performance Management. They're our partners in implementing the city's homeless services contracts.
Wonderful.
Apologize
Thank you.
for that omission.
Yes.
Thank you so much. All right, I think not. So what we'll do is we will continue the item. It's going to go to Budget and Finance, right? And then you're going to come back here after it goes through Budget and Finance. And we'll move on this as soon as we possibly can once we have heard back from our colleagues over at Budget and Finance.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
your time.
Item continued. That'll be the order. And Mr. Reif, does that complete our agenda for today? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.